Our first featured talk tonight is from Mike Seidle and Rick Wehrle of Work Here, which is based in Indianapolis. Mike has split his career between software development, sales, and marketing. Mike's startups include Indie Associates, professional blog service, and virtual payment systems. When it comes to software development, Mike says he's been around since the dinosaurs ruled the earth, aka 1986. Mike currently works at Work Here, where he serves as co-founder and COO. Rick put the first job board on the web in 1994 while in college. Eventually, that job board became the technology behind Monster.com. After spending 14 years at Monster, Rick went on to work for a nonprofit working with federal and state job banks running the National Labor Exchange. Currently, Rick serves as co-founder and CTO at Work Here. Tonight, Rick and Mike will tell us about building Work Here using Meteor. So everybody, please welcome Rick and Mike.
Well, thank you for the warm intro, Nick. And I'm Mike, and this is Rick, just so you know which is which. So just a little bit about Work Here. We were founded in June of 2015. That's the three founders. Howard Bates, the third guy, couldn't be with us tonight. In January of this year, we actually finished our fundraise. We raised about $1.7 million and released our mobile app. The whole idea for Work Here really came from a time where Rick and I worked together at direct employers. We would go to lunch and we'd talk about conversations we had with customers like Darden Restaurants, Popeyes Louisiana Kitchen, Hilton Hotels, where they would talk about how all the HR technology solutions are built to recruit people like all of you in the audience, developers, business development people, engineers, executives, that kind of thing. And not a lot of attention was being given to the vast majority of the workforce. So just to kind of clear things up for everybody here, our target market for our app's a little different. We're not like LinkedIn or Career Builder or Monster or something like that. We're actually built for workers. That's the 73% of the US economy that has some college and below, and they all have job titles that are real similar to one another. So we really didn't build for developers and executives and all those people. It really is all about workers. Just a little more on our company. Our app's 100% made with Meteor. We're hosted on Galaxy, which is Meteor's platform as a service hosting for Meteor apps. Our app's available in the Apple App Store, Google Play, and on Amazon. So as we started up Work Here, Meteor is extremely helpful. Go back to when we started this. It was just Rick and I, and we were looking at how are we going to build this really ambitious app just with two developers. And so we started looking around, and we ended up at the Cincinnati Meteor meetup and checked out Meteor, and we thought, hey, this thing might have possibilities because we might be able to actually write our app with one code base and hit all the major app platforms. So we could get iOS, and we could get to Android, and maybe even Amazon. And so the promise was we could do this all with one code base. There would be less code. We'd hit all the mobile platforms. Well, it turned out that worked out well for us. The next big thing was we thought it might be a little newer, better technology and maybe a better story for our investors. So as we went out to raise money, we started sharing with them about Meteor, and a lot of them had never really heard a lot about this, but as they looked into it, they absolutely loved it. And they liked two things. One is it was that whole single code base thing, very appealing because it's capital efficient. The second thing they really liked about it was that Meteor Development Group is a venture funded startup too, and they have a lot of really big names, and those names were very influential with our investors. And then the third big thing that Meteor's helped us with, and this really is as we started going into putting that app into production, Galaxy, their platform as a service product, really helped us have a lot less DevOps and a lot more development of features in our app. So it's been very, very, very helpful to us. So just a quick overview of our app. I don't want to spend a lot of time on a demo. The whole idea with our app is so workers can find jobs right now. When you're a worker looking for work, you do it a little differently than a professional or a developer would. If you're a developer, you're probably going to go into a job board, put in a few skills you have, like, I don't know, maybe Meteor.js, and it's going to come back and give you some opportunities. For people that are workers, what matters most to them is location. So what we ended up doing is building a mobile app that really is a geo app that shows you a lot like Zillow does real estate. We show people jobs on a map. We've actually got it down to where we can show you within a block or two jobs nearby you. It's a big deal. Saves a worker a lot of time. Instead of spending all day looking on Monster, they can spend 20, 30 seconds on Work Here, go interview, get a job. So the big deal in our app really is finding places to work nearby. And in order to do that, we've got to geolocate the user. We've got to find all the places that are nearby that they could work. Then we've got to go back and match jobs up to that, get all that on a map quickly so that the user feels like, hey, this app's working for me, and they can move around on the map really quickly, and it's responsive and live and feels good. The thing that was really important to our users really is speed. The faster we make that app work, the better. And so you might go, well, why not write a native app? Why use Meteor? Well, the slow point in our app actually are two of the services we get data from. So rendering and all the client stuff, that's not the slow part. The slow part is on somebody else's server. So in order to build our app, we had to kind of hit a few goals. One was to hide slow microservices. So if we have some place that we're getting places or jobs from and it doesn't go very fast, we don't want the user to know that's going really slowly. Meteor was really helpful with that. We wanted to cache everything so we could speed up the experience when somebody's loaded data. You know, if you look at a map and then you move the map, what do most users do? They move it back. So caching was really important to this. And then reactive updates were really important because we wanted this app to be real time. If you go look at almost every job app or every HR technology app out there, almost all of them run in batch mode like it's 1986. So just a quick look at the architecture in work here. We get our jobs and places from external services. They're not really all that fast. They're kind of slow. And what happens is we pull job data and query data from those services, and we cache that data in MongoDB on the server, and then we use Meteor's reactivity to push that to the client. So when we make these queries to our place service and our job service, that data doesn't come in anywhere near the same time. It just kind of comes in whenever that service wants to send it to us. And the nice thing is we push that into Mongo, it's being pushed automatically down to the client. So to the user, all they see is, hey, I pulled out my phone, I pulled it up, it's showing me all the jobs right around me, and all these little blue dots and gray dots are popping up. So the blue dots mean I can get a job at this place right now because they have jobs posted. The gray dots mean I can maybe follow that place and get notified when a job does open. But the net for our users is all that data is coming through really fast on their phone. It looks really good, it feels live, it's responsive. And to Rick and I, as far as building it, by building it with Meteor, we probably saved ourselves a year writing all the code that would have taken to get that data to move from the client to server automatically and deal with latency compensation and all that fun stuff. So it's been very, very helpful. So one of the things that we did is we started working with Meteors. We started the Indianapolis Meteor Meetup group. And every meeting we have the same exact question every time, and that is, can I use my favorite database with Meteor? And so the answer is yes, and I'm going to let Rick kind of explain a little bit how we do that.
Yeah, so my answer every time when I get that question is, use MongoDB, think of it as a server-side cache that's directly connected to the client-side cache. You can use any database you want or any API service, and that database could be a local database, but when you query it, you store the results into the server-side Mongo, and cache results, and that allows you to hit the fast Mongo cache instead of the slower services. It also reduces the load on data sources, so think about rate limiting or other issues like that could come up. The way that we do this with work here is, here's the code part of the talk. You basically create a collection, then with Mongo you set a geo, for us, since we use, all our queries have a geo data on them, the coordinates of the user. We have a geocoordinates 2D sphere index, and then we set a TTL cache on that so it expires after an hour. And that's really like a special, an underutilized feature, I think, with Mongo is what you're doing here is you're actually only storing in the main application the results that have currently been accessed from those external services. Here's an example of what that document looks like. This is, once again, it's kind of pseudocode because we also store the query results, so the jobs and places will be in here tied to this. But this is really the key component for us of how we're caching the location. We basically store the query of the user, so their coordinates, and then when they made that query. Then to check whether or not something's in the cache, whether or not it's a hit, you just run a geospatial query against Mongo with the coordinates of the user. And then the max is basically the radius. So, like Mike said, the first thing that happens with this type of caching is the one user is going to see the same results. They're going to move around and they're going to be in the same place. So you don't have to requery the external services just for the results they already have. but also a lot of users, or a lot of the places to work are in places like malls or buildings or office parks. And so they're close together, and so if lots of users are checking from the same place, they're going to reuse the results from another user, as long as it's within that cache time period.
So really, the beauty of using Mongo as a cache like that is you can make things go really, really fast. You don't have to load a lot of data in there, and that part of our query where we were doing the time to life or time to live piece really, really reduces the amount of data in Mongo and makes it so we have a smaller set of data to query against, so that means it goes a lot faster. So something that was really important to us as we developed, and this really kind of came about right around November, is that Meteor started launching Galaxy, their hosted platform, and we were right at the point where we were starting to look at how are we going to deploy this thing and manage it, and how are we going to push into production. And we had a problem, and that's that we had a very unreliable DevOps guy, and that would be me. I was spending about 75% of my time building out the marketing plan and dealing with sales and marketing. We had some early adopters that we were working with, and so a lot of my time was focused on meetings, and I couldn't be there to push the buttons or write the scripts or whatever Rick and his team needed when they needed it. So Galaxy came along, and they were able to fire the world's least reliable DevOps guy and replace him with a command, Meteor deploy. And anyhow, Meteor deploy, what that did for us is it allowed any of our developers to push code up to staging or, if needed, into production very quickly and not have to spend a whole lot of time writing DevOps tooling. And I know I like DevOps tooling a lot. It's fun, but it's not very productive, and really what we needed was features in our app. So it was very helpful for us in that way. So Galaxy was just a huge add for us. There's a few things in Galaxy that are coming soon that are going to make it even more valuable for work here. One of the big things for us long term will be SEO. We want to get a lot of traffic from Google, and we have need to get some landing pages in there. And then we also would like to put public profile pages in for our users and for the places that have work here, and for jobs that we have listed on work here. One of the real challenges with SEO is it's all about going fast, and so pre-rendering really helps with that. The second problem that we have is that we have a lot of customers that would like, one of our customers is Goodwill of Central Indiana. They would love to have goodwill.workhere.com so they can have a landing target for some of their employment branding campaigns. With wildcard host names, we'll be able to do that, and that's going to really help our product be better, and hopefully MDG does that in a way that's as easy as Meteor deploy. So anyhow, that's it for now. Thank you, and if you have any questions, we'd love to answer them. Otherwise, we can move on to the next.
Where did you host it before you got funded to afford Galaxy?
Repeat the question.
Okay, so where did we host it before we got into Galaxy? Okay, I think we started off like a lot of apps do with the free Meteor hosting. We started there, and then we go, okay, let's try something different. I tried out Modulus, and then we went to AWS and ended up writing a really, really fantastic DevOps tool for automatically deploying to AWS that works just for us and will never work anywhere else.
Just for Mike, actually.
Yeah, just for Mike. So we ended up kicking hosting it ourselves on AWS to the curb, switching over to Galaxy, and that really did take a lot of pressure off of DevOps. So, answer the question.
What was the reason for switching from Modulus to AWS?
What was the reason from switching? I think it was a combination of just perception of cost and the fact that we were just running into lots of problems where it wasn't working for me. And again, I didn't have a lot of time, so. Go ahead.
Are you planning to stick with Meteor as you scale to large volumes?
I'm hoping we can ride that horse as long as it'll go.
Yeah.
It's great not to.
I think with the caching architecture that we have, it should go a while.
So.
What drove you to choose Meteor versus Parse or building a custom stack?
Parse was not. What drove us to choose Meteor versus Parse or custom stack? Actually, I don't think Parse was out when we initially looked at it 2 years ago. Was it? I don't know. But we were actually Python developers, Django Python developers initially, and so that's how we started off with that. And actually, the reason why we chose Meteor, as he might have said earlier, is we went to a meetup in Cincinnati, and the community there was so great, and they were able to, like in one night, basically bring us up to, the level where I could go back and write the initial version of the app in a week, versus before we were banging our heads, basically.
If you look at writing mobile apps, too, the other problem is, if I'm using a backend like Parse, I still have to write multiple different front ends. So I still have an Android app to write, and I still have an iOS app to write, and that sort of thing. And with Meteor, it's one code base, and that includes the web, too. So it was kind of like we have one code base for everything, including our web version. And it was a huge time saver. I mean, there's only 2 of us, and I don't think we could have got through one native mobile app in the time that we wrote this thing.
Right. Did we use Blaze or Ionic? So we right away started with Blaze. Actually, what we'd been looking at before was Angular, so I'd actually been spending about a month learning Angular, and that was going to be the front end with the Django backend. And Blaze, the simplicity of it was actually what allowed me to come in and, after spending one day at a meetup. It was an all-day meetup, but it wasn't just an hour, but it was I was able to then go back and write that very quickly, and it was both on the server and on the client. And so I was like, I don't need to do Django and Python either. I can just write one code base. And now as Angular and React have become more native front ends, we are trying to decide which way to go. And mostly it comes about by the developers that we're hiring. So we've hired a couple of people who are Angular developers at their previous job, and so they're lobbying pretty hard for that. But
so Rick, you kind of hit something that's been big for us too,
right.
And that's by going with Meteor. What it allows us to do is hire JavaScript developers and not worry about hiring Python guys and all these different language guys. It's really just one language, and so we can really focus on hiring really good developers. And we know almost everybody has some experience with JavaScript and can be converted to all JavaScript pretty easily. It doesn't always work the other way. So.
Right. Yeah.
Are there any Meteor packages that you use that you found really useful, or that surprised you that they were there?
I don't know. I'm going to let Rick ask that question about what Meteor packages we found useful. So.
I would say it's really more around the packages that, like Constellation, that allow you to debug while you're working, to see like what session variables are available, or what the session variables are set to, or what's actually a mini Mongo, or the plugins for the browser, or the view the DVP messages that are coming back and forth. That's really, to me, just because we're doing that, or developing actively, that's really what's more important to me. I can't really think right now of my favorite, just package that, fit into the ecosystem, but I think we probably have 30 packages,
I think, honestly, we've been through it on UI, too. We started off with Bootstrap, and we switched over to Materialize, and I don't know that we'll ever be happy with like whatever the UI is, but the packages that have been really helpful getting us moving quickly.
Right.
So.
How many concurrent users do you support, for instance?
Well, we just launched January 21st.
Oh, okay.
Right,
So
yeah.
I'd love to tell you like thousands and thousands, but the number is like probably I can count on my fingers and toes. So.
Yeah.
What are the biggest drawbacks you've experienced with Meteor?
So what are the biggest drawbacks we've experienced with Meteor? So let's separate the. I'm going to separate the learning part, because that's always learning, right? It hurts.
Right.
I think really the biggest drawback to it has been not having a lot of ready-made developers like we would have if we went with like Django or Rails or something like that, where everybody already knows it. But it turns out that's not been all that bad, because it's pretty easy to pick Meteor up, and it's JavaScript, so there's a lot of really good devs out there. So.
We have time for one more question.
Last question.
What did you guys do for the testing?
What do we do for testing? So right now we do a lot of manual testing. So we actually have more staging servers than production servers. We have been looking at Velocity and Cucumber, but we're not to that point yet where we haven't implemented testing.